joining us. We'll just continue to let people in as we get started. But we wanted to welcome you all and say thanks for joining us. I'm Griffin O'Shaughnessy, the founder and CEO of Canopy Advisory Group. As most of you know, Canopy is an on-demand talent firm. We're ready to foster growth, accelerate performance, and tackle organizational challenges with our network of top-tier professionals. Part of our vision at Canopy includes connecting our broader community with incredible experts like Marcia Dosinger, our guest this morning. We're so excited to have Marcia host our webinar today. She is a fractional culture officer, and she's also a leadership coach, working with organizations to reduce unwanted turnover, stress, and burnout. So the idea for this webinar came out of a conversation during the Q&A portion of a panel discussion that was hosted by the Colorado Real Estate Journal this summer. I was on the panel and we had a lively conversation, the panelists, around culture during the session. And then at the end, during the Q&A, an audience member asked each of us as panelists how we define culture. And it was kind of a moment where we all looked at each other like, we actually didn't touch on that. How do you define culture? So we each talked about it, kind of from the heart, how we see culture. But it got me thinking, we all sort of intuitively know what culture means, but really, how do we define it and how do we improve it? It's such a crucial question in any organization right now. So that was really the impetus for having Marcia speak this morning. And we would love for this to be an interactive conversation. So please feel free to ask, just unmute yourself, ask questions live at any point, or you can also throw them in the chat. And Serena and I will be monitoring that chat for you. We have one poll question kind of early on in the session, so watch for that as well. And then I'm just going to give you a little bit more background on Marcia before I let her take it away. Marcia is the architect of the Culture Cares framework, which she created to help today's organizations thrive. She helps leaders as they adapt to changing employee expectations like hybrid work environments and remote environments. Prior to her work as a fractional culture officer, Marcia founded the national nonprofit called My Lifeline. She had a vision to transform the cancer experience through community and connection. Marcia served in various leadership roles for more than a decade at My Lifeline, and then she led the successful merger of the organization into the global cancer support community in 2018. Marcia has been honored with numerous recognitions, including the Outstanding Leader Award at the Health 2.0 conference in Las Vegas. She also released a new memoir last February called You Are Meant for Great Things, My Story of Turning Setbacks into Stepping Stones. In that book, Marcia shares her story to help women overcome adversity and build resilience. She's got such an incredible background. And Marcia, we're just so honored to have you here this morning. So thank you. And with that, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Griffin. Thank you, Serena, for setting this up and inviting me to speak today. I am absolutely thrilled to be here with all of you and reiterate what Griffin said, please. This is interactive. If you've got anything to share, I'm just one culture expert, and I know many of you are as well, as we've all worked within organizations. Some have had great cultures, some have had not so great cultures, and I think I can speak for many people, and I say I've learned more from the cultures that weren't very successful in how not to do things sometimes, and so that kind of led to the creation of the Culture Cares model. So let's dig in. Today, our goals are to learn the Culture Cares framework in order to retain top talent. And I'm going to give you some actionable, tactical, and practical ways that you can do that as soon as you exit the call today. It'll be easier for you to recruit. You can become a destination employer or an employer of choice when you have a really clear culture strategy that is communicated through a common language. And we'll talk more about that. And then I just want to give you the tools to really lead with clarity, courage, and confidence. And you'll have that by the end of the call. And then at the end, you'll get a gift. You'll get all of these slides at the end. And so you can take notes on the slides or not, but just know that you'll be able to have them with all the resources that are incorporated. So I'd like to start with just introducing yourself in the chat, share where you're located, what organization you're with, and even what you're hoping to learn today. And if Serena and Griffin can kind of read that off to me. It's not very, oh, there we go. Let me open the chat. Just
I think
please.
everyone's just waking up this morning. So
Okay, all right. Well, you can
yes,
introduce
let's
yourself
say
throughout.
hello. That's great. If you're not, that's great.
Yes, yes. Okay. All right. So 3 years ago, in the fall of 2020, I was hiking with a friend of mine, Jen, in the foothills here, and it was a beautiful hike. We were 6 feet apart because it was the pandemic days. But we were so excited to see each other. We hadn't seen each other in a long time. And as we were admiring the changing leaves, she was excited to tell me about a change of her own. And she said, I quit my job. And I was like, what? Jen was one of those people who were just like a top performer at her company, the head of the sales organization. She was, on the fast track, rising the ranks through leadership. She had always loved her job. And I was so shocked to hear that she willingly was leaving now. And she went on to tell me, you won't believe what happened in my exit interview today. And I said, what? And she said, well, I was on Zoom with Lisa, my HR manager, and Lisa started asking the typical questions like, why are you leaving? And what could we have done differently? And my friend, Jen, was honest and direct. And she said, I'm leaving because I don't feel valued, respected, or appreciated here anymore. And at that point, you could hear a pin drop and the whole tone of the meeting changed. And Lisa from HR took her glasses off, put her head in her hands, and began to cry. And my friend was like taken aback, and she felt terrible from across the Zoom room. What could she do? She said, Lisa, are you okay? What's wrong? And Lisa from HR said, I don't know. I am overwhelmed. I'm burned out. Take me with you. And I said, wait a minute. Your HR manager during an exit interview said, take her with you. And my friend said, yes. And I asked, isn't the mission of your organization to support people, to support the mental health of people in need? And my friend said, yes, that is the irony of it all. And so I went home that night. I was drinking hot tea on the couch, and I just couldn't stop thinking about Lisa from HR. And as an outsider, it was such a disconnect that their company stood for mental health support and their culture was one of mental burnout. And I thought there has to be a better way. There has to be, I started, studying cultures, like really deep diving. I pretty much have a PhD in culture, organizational culture, and resilience at this point. And I was like, what do award-winning workplaces do to have the culture where they can retain their talent, they can grow their businesses, they can succeed financially? It's all about the people. And so the moral of this story is that if you're looking into retention and you're worried that somebody might have a foot out the door, look at these 3 things and make sure that they feel valued, respected, and appreciated, and open up a conversation. So Griffin already did a great job of introducing me, but as you know, I founded my Lifeline Cancer Foundation in 2007. We merged in 2018, and there I joined the cancer support community, the company we merged with, as their vice president of digital strategy. And then COVID hit. And where there were some cultural issues within the organization, but it wasn't unlike anything else. It was just like some cracks, like everybody has within. No culture is perfect. But under the pressure of the pandemic, the foundation started to shake a little more, and anyone in healthcare back in those days and still today are really struggling with burnout, stress, and overwhelm. It's just part of the healthcare world. And the board tapped me on the shoulder and they said, hey, can you focus full time on our culture? Can you, help us diagnose what the root causes of issues might be, and then help us develop a plan to fix any issues and make sure that people feel healthy and empowered at the organization? And I said, absolutely. I studied organizational psychology in college, always been interested in, building teams and cultures. And so this was an amazing opportunity. And this is where, with the leadership team, we created the CARES model and we implemented it to tremendous success. I'll show you some of that data in a bit. And then Griffin already mentioned that I was able to publish a book this year, and it's really to help women going through some serious adversity and helping them to build resilience, give them hope and inspiration, And that's the purpose of this book. Today, these are some of the companies I've worked with in the last few months, and really just getting in there with, culture strategy, advisory services, leadership coaching, team building, and facilitation. And we've, built the CARES model into a lot of the work that we're doing with companies. Okay, so now we're going to transition into what is culture. And as Griffin touched on, everyone has a different definition, right? But I was working with Microsoft this summer, and the team leader had a one-word definition, and it was such a like aha moment for me. I was like, that is culture. I really resonated with his definition. So I was going to see if you could guess the one word based on the hint from this picture, what you think Microsoft described culture as. So you can throw it into the chat or speak out loud, whatever you think. And it's really hard to guess, even though I think this is a good clue. I don't think it's the best clue, but if you can guess, you'll get a prize. Anything in the chat? Any guesses?
We've got Brittany says we've got a couple people that's chemistry.
Oh my gosh, you are geniuses. No one ever gets it. That is amazing. Yes, chemistry.
Good audience.
So good. You are totally awake. I'm really impressed. Like, I just did a workshop last week for a group of quantum engineers, and that was hard. I mean, it's hard for almost everybody, so I'm really, really impressed. Good job. So chemistry is the dynamics between the people. It's not the individuals you hire, it's the dynamics between each person, and it's the energy. So these are very hard to grasp things, which is why I love the CARES model, because the CARES model pulls it into something that's objective and tactical. Ways to improve that chemistry. I looked up on Forbes. They had some really cool definitions too. They have secret sauce of your organization, which again, everything seems so vague and ambiguous, right? But this is, shared norms, values, attitudes, and practices that form the collective identity of your company. And at its best, it's the invisible glue that binds your team. So again, very ambiguous, vague ways that you can describe it, but the CARES model will give you a way that's more grounding. The costs of a negative culture are astronomical at this point. They keep going up. So anytime there's a vacancy, you're going to see the expenses go up and productivity go down. The latest research shows that turnover can cost 3 to 4 times an annual salary, which I was shocked. I had to look more into that because just a year ago, the average cost was 1 to 2 times a person's annual salary. And so I've talked to experts about this, and they're saying that the labor costs have really increased is one reason. And so when you lose someone, it's probably going to cost you more to hire the next person. Also, a difference is it used to be that there was a vacancy for a few weeks. And now most companies are seeing when there's a vacancy, it will take months to fill that position. So again, you're losing productivity, the people who are there shouldering the extra burden of the vacancy, the workload from the previous person is kind of, causing more burnout, and just, everything feels like a little bit harder. The cost of disengagement in the US is billions of dollars. And that's been proven over and over again. And so, we really want to focus on retention through a strategy. The barriers of retention, I think we've all experienced this at some point, are, huge one is a lack of trust. And so it really pays to be proactive about building mutual trust on the team. Team conflict is that energy that is really pulling down on the organization. Overwhelm and burnout is just commonplace in our, economy, which is constantly changing. So we really want to take steps to kind of mitigate the risk of these things. I'm doing research on a second book right now, and I'm interviewing CEOs and chief people officers of successful organizations. And one who has been in an HR role for 20 years, she said, I feel like my head is spinning. Like, what's our new normal? We're still adapting, still negotiating with employees, hybrid, remote, in person. I mean, we're still having those conversations years later. So here's our poll. I'd like to know, what challenges are currently at play for your organization. This is anonymous and would just like to get a pulse on what's happening with you.
All right, that should be launching here any second.
Yep, I see the results coming through. I don't know if everybody can see the results yet. We've got 12 people, 13 people answered.
Now, I don't see the results, Marcia, so
Oh, I
if
see them.
you'll talk us through them, that
Oh,
would be
yeah. Oh, sure. We're still getting people. We've got 64% that have participated, so 18 people so far. Maybe give it a few more seconds and then we can close the poll and share the results. Does that sound good? I think we're good. Oh, we just got 19 people. I think we can share the results now, Serena. Okay. All right. So we've got number one, ongoing employee burnout and stress is very, very common. The second is no culture strategy to improve retention. You're going to have that by the end of the hour. Hard to recruit top talent, absolutely. Higher than normal turnover and a lack of employee trust. Oh, you know what? I didn't scroll down and see more. Okay, there's other. And then some people are having no problems. We're doing great. Excellent. That's awesome. So I'll hit stop sharing right now. So now you have a pulse on, kind of what people are dealing with here. And we'll talk through those things today and feel free to ask any specific questions you have. So now we're going to flip into the positive. I know I gave some like negative news just there, but I come to you with optimism. I believe that when you talk about culture out in the open and wanting to create a healthy, empowering environment for your people, good things will happen, especially if they see your sincere actions on the back end of that. And so here's just some research on, global research about the general things that people want from their work environment. And probably none of these will come to any surprise. But, mutual trust is a huge one. Teamwork, support, clarity on how to succeed is really hard in these days because our roles, like someone I know, she just got hired back in the beginning of the summer for a new job. Well, a quarter later, her manager wants her to do some new and different things. And so now she needs clarity on how to do the new and different things and how that's going to blend in with, what she's been doing for the first quarter. So it's ongoing conversations with your people that are working with you to help them make sure that they understand what success looks like and have some fun. That is really important. I was on a Zoom call with a leadership team and we had done the culture survey, and it's through Culture Amp. I don't know if you've heard of them. I love that survey platform. I'm not affiliated with them in every way, but having used it, I thought it was awesome because it gives you, if you have a bigger organization, it gives you results by department, which departments are doing well. The ones that are doing well are all green. The ones that aren't doing well are all red. Well, this particular leader, I said, we need to like increase the health and happiness of our people here. And she said, I don't need to have happiness at work. I get my happiness other places. And I thought, okay, that's an interesting perspective considering how much time we spend at work in our lives. And her team was all red in that survey. She had 80% annual turnover year over year for the last few years. So obviously that attitude was kind of cascading down. And I tried to explain to her that happiness isn't like the ping pong table at Google or the beer tap. It's about feeling valued, respected, and appreciated. That's what makes people happy at work. And the opposite of happiness at work is misery, and no one wants that. So anyways, we had an interesting conversation around that. So I like to share that example as even if you don't need happiness, your people probably do.
Marcia,
Yeah.
this is Shauna. I'm
Hi,
going to
Sean.
take Griffin up on the open dialogue piece here.
Absolutely. Please.
Thank
One of the things, and you can feel free to just slap me in the face if I'm way off base here. One of the things I found that works really well for me as I've grown in my career from just being a line leader to individual contributors to being an executive is not, no offense, but not hearing it from HR, hearing it from me as the department leader and acknowledging that that there's an issue. And a lot of times for me, it's not, I try to not make it rehearsed, but it's my job is to make sure that when you come here, you can give it your best.
Mhm,
And one of the best ways I can do that is make sure that you feel like you're being able to give it your best outside of work.
mhm.
And now that's different for everybody. It's, I work with a bunch of technologists and scientists, and it's like, look, there's not a line that says this is this is how everybody fits. Some people may not like time at home, so they spend 60 hours at work. Okay, let them do that.
Yeah,
One person I had liked to volunteer a lot, and that was important to his personal life, and so I let him volunteer. And I had other people that would come to me that would say he can't do that, he's taking too much time. And I'm like, well, when he feels impressed to stop and help somebody, he stops and help. Do you do that? He goes, well, that's not my personality. I'm like, okay, let's figure out what is in your personality that aligns in your personal life, that aligns to allowing you to be your best here. Now there are boundaries, right? I can't let everybody work 20 hours a week and pay them a full-time salary. So we have delivery things that we have to get done. And so I've really kind of focused my, this started a little bit later in my career, but focused on the framework of getting stuff done and giving people control over that.
yes.
And then the feedback that we would get started to go up quite a bit when people felt like they were in control.
Absolutely. That's huge. That's, called empowering your people. And it's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm absolutely aligned with what you're saying, and you're feeding right into this slide right here. So you're being an effective leader because you're taking each individual as they are differently, and you're trying to maximize the potential of each individual. And each individual has different needs. So I think you're doing an amazing job. Just looking at this slide here, a great place to work for all is one of those, culture award winning company, or you can win awards for your culture through them. They have 30 years of research behind them. And this is a model that they put together that's going to lead you to the right side of the model, which is everyone wants innovation and financial growth. That's two key reasons why we are in business. So you have to feed that innovation, financial growth from the left side over. So you were talking about leadership effectiveness and really meeting the unique needs of your employees, your values as a company, and how are you aligning those to the values of the people that you're hiring and the people that you're retaining, and hopefully you're reaching out in recruitment, talking about your values. Some people said it was hard to recruit. Make sure you lead with your values and vision, because then you'll attract the best people towards you. And then that trust is just something that you're building, Sean, with your people by listening to them, meeting them where they are, and addressing their needs as well as you can.
Yeah, one thing I said was, I always shared, is my job is to make you the most marketable person to everybody outside of my department and other companies. And it was funny. It was kind of, when your parents do a little reverse psychology, but that really drove my turnover rates way, way down. Just acknowledging that,
Yes.
and becoming a human as opposed to a department head or a C-level manager.
Yeah.
And it worked well. It was risky. I always thought it was contrary to what I was taught in business school and stuff. But
Yeah.
there are metrics, there are KPIs that we have to manage too. But
Mm-hmm.
but those are boundaries. Those are the United States, and we can travel everywhere we want within the United States
Mm-hmm.
as long as we're moving towards our delivery goals. And
Yeah.
it was pretty remarkable. It was my own little case study.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Okay. So, leaders have the most influence over the culture. So we say leaders establish the culture. Everyone in your organization is responsible for contributing in their own way, but you know that leaders have that outsized influence, and a common language defines it. When you have a common language, like the CARES framework, for example, you'll have a common, consistent, and compelling answer to this question. What's the culture like there? Says every single job candidate who is interviewing with you, right? And sometimes there's multiple interviewers at the same company talking with a candidate. And what if this candidate asks the question, gets like 3 different answers, versus what if they have a really clear, concise way to explain what the culture is like there, values driven. And this candidate's like, wow, they've got it all together. They've got it dialed in. So it's really helpful to have that common language. All right, so I've been teasing up the culture cares model quite a bit. So here's what it is. CARES is an acronym, and it's an acronym for commitment, appreciation, respect, engagement, and safety. And it's modeled after the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is, most of us know, is the science of human motivation. So it's translated into group motivation here, and how to get the most out of your people to reach the highest levels of commitment, which is the peak. You want a culture of accountability, like Sean was saying. You've got KPIs, we've got a shared responsibility and shared ownership over the goals of the company. So the path to get there is not just to drive home all those KPIs. You've got to like bolster it and strengthen it with these 4 areas that are leveling it up to make that commitment, instead of like that force. It's just like, it just comes, because people, once they feel like you care about them as a whole human being, they're going to give their best. They're going to be their best for the company. So, you may be asking, so, okay, that sounds nice, but does the CARES model work? So I wanted to share some case study results, and I have more results, but I'm just sharing a few right now. Within the first 6 months of educating the company on the culture cares model, within the first 6 months, we had measurable results. The biggest one was this improved psychological safety, and I'll touch on that in a couple slides. But I mean, that was our lowest score. And when you don't have psychological safety, you really have high risk in your organization of people leaving or derailing the progress. Psychological safety really is everything. And that is a direct quote from one of the people I'm interviewing for my second book on culture leadership. She is the chief people officer of a $9 billion commercial real estate company that we've all heard of. She said during the interview, she said, psychological safety is everything. Without it, performance is derailed. So to have an immediate turnaround and up 16% was really significant, because it's not easy. Engagement increased, management scores increased. And then when you went to our Glassdoor platform, our Glassdoor profile, we saw results like this, the right 2 columns, 250-ish% growth in, I would recommend to a friend this as a great place to work, from 1/3 to 3/4 in the span of a year. People having a positive business outlook also increased from 1/3 to about 3/4 in a year. And this is a result, my belief is this is a result of having a concrete culture strategy that was built on employee feedback. It wasn't like guessing, I think we need trust, I think we need this. We actually measured it in the beginning, and then we put a plan together to address it. So now I'm going to dig a little bit into the layers of the CARES model, and we're going to start from the foundation, like you would build any house or pyramid, is from the bottom up. And this is that piece of psychological safety. This term was coined by Amy Edmondson. She's been studying team success for about 25 years now. She's a Harvard Business School professor. The official definition is a belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, and mistakes. She's the author of this book called The Fearless Organization. And so if you want to learn more about the data behind this, but psychological safety really came from a research project that she did with Google. It's called the Google Aristotle Project. She studied 180 teams over a 2-year period. And she had one question that she wanted to answer. What makes teams objectively successful? And after that 2-year period of studying these teams and who's reaching the KPIs and who's the highest performers, they found that psychological safety is the #1 indicator of high performance, inclusion, and innovation. I do a lot of workshops on this, and still some people haven't heard of this before. So I really love to educate about this concept, because sometimes, you can't figure out why the energy and the teams aren't working, and why the culture seems like a little out of whack sometimes. I would say let's look at this, let's get educated on this, and specifically how to create a psychologically safe environment. And so you can measure actually the levels of all of these 4 dimensions on a team. Amy Edmondson has something called the Fearless Organization Scan, and you can really measure how you're doing in each area on a team that may not be, working to its full capacity. So that's something that I can help teams do if they're interested. But one more piece about psychological safety before we move on is what it is not. Sometimes it's easier to understand by knowing what it is not about being nice. It is not about consensus. It is not touchy-feely. And it's not about lowering standards. So you're keeping the standards high, knowing that this is the way to get to the high quality standards that you're looking for. So I could go on and on and on about it, but the easy way to start is with a conversation, maybe with someone you trust on your team, and kind of pull these 4 things out and say, hey, do you feel safe to have an open, candid conversation with me? Do you feel like it's safe to not just give help, but ask for help? A lot of people just keep on struggling on their own because they might be embarrassed if they ask for help. So you really want to, as a leader, proactively say, we encourage everyone to ask for help, and admit when you're making a mistake, or that you've made a mistake, so that we can fix it sooner. Otherwise, it gets brushed under the rug, and problems will fester that way. What's our attitude towards risk and failure? And then how inclusive and diverse is our team? And you could think of diversity as race, gender, and the things that we normally think about it as representation as one piece. But what's the diversity of thought? So if you get everyone who thinks the same on the team making a decision, maybe you haven't pulled someone in who's had, who's only been at the company for a year versus 10 years. They might have just different ways of looking at a problem, and you can get to a better solution with that diversity. Okay, so once you've gotten the psychological safety education and the actions into place to create that, we can level up to engagement. Engagement being defined as a person's commitment, motivation, sense of purpose, and passion for their work and organization. And this is where I put all of like the learning and development and growth strategies within this engagement level, as well as connection. There's some research that says if you have a best friend at work, you're more likely to stay in your company. And so you want to like proactively like build friendships in work, because it's just more enjoyable to go to work that way. And I know we all intuitively know that. One of the things I do is I like what Sean was saying, I like to measure what people's unique strengths, talents, communication styles, intrinsic motivators are. And I use these strength-based assessments called talent insights. And then you can have like an individual conversation once you've measured all of these things, and to say, hey, is your role, projects, tasks, are these all aligned with your intrinsic motivators? You're going to get so much more out of a person. You're going to help them reach their potential if they're lining up to what they intrinsically love to do. And believe me, they will stay at the organization if that's the focus of a manager relationship, if it's possible. And then we pull the team together and we do a team collaboration workshop and share each other's communication styles and create strategies to elevate and streamline communication. And so these are the kinds of things I really love to do, because it helps you get to know people so much quicker. They're really great for new hires, because it could take 6 months or a year to get to know a new hire. But if you really delve into what makes them passionate, you're going to get to know them that much sooner and create that connection.
Marcia, we've got a couple questions in the chat about that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Remind us again the name of the assessments that you used for, what's it, Strength Finders, but something like that.
Yeah, it's called Talent Insights Assessment.
Okay.
So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And then we have another comment that friendship, kind of going back to your discussion around friendships and how important they are. How do you prevent those friendships from becoming cliques and alienating other people?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a cultural question. I don't think you can control other people and how they're creating clicks. But if your value is, like acceptance, and you have like a clear culture strategy and a value that, because you can't trust people who are alienating others. So it's just something to address head on. Just say, hey, I've noticed, that there's a click here. Is there something that we can do to help open up to everybody? But it's just kind of human nature as well, is to kind of be on the lookout for when these are happening, because that will also kind of derail, progress if people are feeling alienated. And not that you have to have best friends at work all the time, but absolute respect is key. And it seems like if respect is one of your values, that this would contradict it. So I
Perfect.
would always address these issues from the company value perspective.
Perfect. That's it. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so generational things are always a topic of conversation now. So just kind of, I'm going to touch on this pretty briefly, but engaging, the Gen Zs. And if you feel like you're struggling with engaging them, and I know that a lot of people call them entitled, their expectations are too high, they want to rise through the ranks too quickly before they've gotten their experience. And but also I have two Gen Zs living at home, so they're growing up totally different than I grew up, right? And then a lot of us. But really, I don't know if it's entitlement as much. I would reframe that and just say they were just born, basically with being able to customize their lives around. And now that everybody has a phone, they don't have to, go out, and they're not used to actually like going out and getting resources at a library and just finding some, like all the ways that maybe the Gen Xers or, used to have to go and get information. It's literally a tap of the finger that they can get things. And this is kind of what they're used to. A good way to think about managing Gen Zs is to try and position yourself as a coach or a mentor. And this means, as a coach, first of all, you're mentoring them how to do their job well, training them. The coaching is all about asking them good questions. So when they come to you with questions, kind of turn it back on them and help say, how would you handle this? Instead of just like feeding them the answers all the time, like try to come at it from a coaching perspective, which is that ask versus tell. And I think you'll see, some more success. The millennials are also, this graph on the right is really, when you're thinking about retention, is how can you highly connect them to their job? It's around reputation. Do you have an employer reputation where it's like, I'm so proud to work here? Are they connected? Do they enjoy the work? That's the talent insights and making sure their strengths and motivators are lined up to their jobs. And does it give them purpose and meaning? So those are just 3 key areas to look into for engagement. So, some ideas, I've seen a lot of culture committees sprout up lately. I don't know if you have culture committees within your organizations, but make sure they're cross-functional and try and empower the people to improve the culture. The leadership establishes the tone, but that everyone can help you build that positive culture that you're looking to have. Learning, development, career conversations are so crucial to potentially add these into your one-on-one meetings with them. It could be weekly, it could be monthly, but I wouldn't make it less than monthly. Like, what would you like to learn next? How would you like to grow next? Let us help you with your career advancement path. And like Sean, I'll bring up Sean again. Like he said that I want to make you as marketable as you can be, whether it's for us or someone else. I mean, by you pouring into your people, it's really, not going to want to leave, most likely, unless they hit a dead end. But then maybe they've just outgrown and you need some fresh blood also. So it's also thinking about, retaining the people who can really execute on what you're looking to do. And then we had a really successful program where we had a new hire mentor program. So every new hire that came in was matched with a volunteer mentee who had more experience at the organization. And this was just a universally popular program, very easy. It really doesn't take much. Our HR department, kind of helped facilitate those relationships to start. And then the mentor mentee were able to connect, on a regular basis. And then the new hire has a person other than their manager to ask, what does that acronym, because there's always new acronyms in a new role, right? Like, what does that mean? And it just provided them that one-on-one relationship or friendship that they could go to.
Marcia, can I ask quickly before we
Yeah.
move on?
Yeah.
I love this idea of having these monthly conversations, though to me, I'm like monthly, that a month goes by like that.
Yeah.
So are these like 10-minute conversations?
Oh, yeah.
How are they sort of like, do you book them out in advance so everybody knows, or is it more of a casual, like, just sort of like, let's touch base on this while we're discussing something else type
Yeah,
conversation?
I would say it's just an add-on to an already meeting. It could be a
Okay,
full meeting, like on a annual or set twice a year basis. It could be its own.
right.
I think it
But
depends
twice
on
a year
the person.
set, and then monthly, just kind of like a casual check-in
Yeah.
for a few minutes.
Yeah, because hopefully they're saying, well, I see myself in 5 years as this. Okay, so would you like to do this LinkedIn training program? So many
Mhm.
LinkedIn learning programs, you can help them find something that's project management or get certified in project management if they want to kind of delve into that more as an example.
I love that. When you think about it, it takes 2 minutes, literally.
Yeah,
It's just ask and have that really quick conversation.
yeah.
It's
And
adding a lot of extra work to anybody's plate.
exactly. So I'll give you an
Yeah.
example of how this conversation would have saved an employee. I just talked to somebody yesterday, and he said recently someone, a really great employee of mine walked into my office and gave me a resignation letter out of the blue. He goes, I was blindsided. And he asked, why are you leaving? And he said, well, I wanted to go to the person resigning. So I wanted to go to this other department. And and the manager's like, oh my God, why didn't you talk to me about this? I would have totally done that for you. Well, this guy already had his feet out the door on his way to a new job. And there was just no conversation. So I think
Mhm.
it's, on the manager to say, just check in. How are you
Yeah,
doing?
right.
Yeah, because some people may want to do like a different job at the same company, but if you don't open the door to have the conversation, they may not even know that they can.
Yeah, I love that. We've also got Shayna in the chat saying, if you have a development plan that's a living document, you can review it once a month and just
Yes.
kind of base, how's it progressing? Has anything changed?
Yeah.
And I minutes max. So
Yeah.
great touch points.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks, Griffin. Thanks. Okay. All right. So now we're leveling up, and we'll go a little bit quicker just for time's sake. Respect is where I put the DE&I initiatives, diversity, equity, inclusion, whatever you're calling it at your company. It's a really key part of your culture. So I always recommend this book. It's called Leading Inclusion for Any Leader. Gina Cox is a colleague. She has a PhD in organizational psychology. She's wonderful. And she talks about DE&I as ready. So starting with respect, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Because if leaders don't first ensure that underrepresented employees feel respected, none of the other outcomes will matter. So she just has a really good perspective on that. The other piece is about empowerment and, that role clarity, training, mentoring, and then giving that person the autonomy to make decisions about how they get their job done. One client said, ask their leaders, can you tell me, when you give me a new project, can you tell me the why and let me figure out the how, instead of micromanaging the how. And micromanagement is the number one problem that I hear employees throughout, whether we're doing surveys and it's in the comments. It's just always like throughout. And sometimes it's really tempting to micromanage because you want it done your way, and that you have the answers. But it also kind of drags on the employee experience. And so it's something to weigh the benefits. And I just wrote a blog about it too, about how you can empower people, some steps you can take. And it goes without saying, when you're not being micromanaged and you have the autonomy to do the work in the way you think will get the best results, that you're going to be more likely to look forward to going to work. And then we level up to appreciation, and saying thanks is a good start, yet not enough. And what I mean by this is that you can thank someone for finishing project A. Thanks for getting that done. But if you add like something about that person, a signature strength that made it done, just say you're so detail oriented, you're always on time, you're always precise. I could not have gotten this report done without you because of your innate skills and talents. So if you can just like, it's a little tiny tweak, but it will make that person feel valued rather than just an output. This is another resource I love. If you're familiar with the 5 love languages, hopefully everyone's familiar with that. It's such a cool way to, whether you're a couple and have a partner or with, but at work, it's called 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. They have a free survey. And so an idea for a team meeting is that everybody takes the free survey, and you'll have a really fun team gathering around lunch or something. Just say, my top love languages, or my top appreciation language is quality time. So you may think, oh, I'm going to give that person a bonus. Well, that's great. That's a gift. And everyone would love a bonus, right? But actually they would love lunch with the boss. Like that would make them feel like so appreciated and valued. So that's why I like this thing. It's easy, it's free, and it's fun. And then when you're appreciating people, think about the people that are accelerating your culture. Share stories at meetings. Like if your value is respect, oh my gosh, I want to thank Sally. She really showed respect to our customer in this way. She went above and beyond. And just share stories often about employees that are really taking our culture to the next level. And then finally, we're reaching the peak. The peak of the mountain is loyalty, retention, and a culture of shared responsibility and accountability to getting the company where it needs to go together. And this is a really old quote, so I apologize for that, but it's really just hard to beat this quote. We can't improve what we don't measure. So my, plea is that you don't have to think about respect like, I don't know how respected people feel. It feels very hard to measure. Well, do a cultural listening tour, which can be, an employee survey. I have the CARE survey that can help you see where you are at the different levels, but you could do any survey and, do some focus group interviews. It's nice to have an external person do this because people feel safer sharing their honest truth. Whereas, they might feel like, oh, I can't say what I really feel because I'm afraid of what, who may find out what I say. So as much anonymity as you can give people is the best way you can get that baseline. So that's it. Pretty simple, not easy, but today we learned about the CARES model and a way to think about where to start when building a culture. I believe that 99% of your success depends on your people, and it pays to be proactive. So I would love to give you these slides and ask for your help in just providing feedback on the session. You can scan this QR code. It'll take you through a really quick 1-minute survey, and then you'll be able to download these slides with all the resources right away. So I'll leave this up for a couple minutes. Does anybody have any questions?
Marcia, there's been so many great takeaways. For me, I'm just scribbling a ton of notes. Great book ideas. I love that doing the 5 languages of appreciation survey and then talking about it, like really, really fun, actionable ideas. So if any of you would like Marcia to help your organization implement some of these ideas, please let us know. We'd be happy to connect you with her. And I don't see any other questions in the chat. Does anybody else want to, ask Marcia? Now's your time. If you have a scenario you want her to talk through, if there's any other kind of last comments or questions you have, please feel free to let us know. We'll hang out, Marcia and I, for a little bit longer too. So if you'd rather ask, when some people have left the meeting, that works as well. But thank you for joining us. Thank you, Marcia. That was so succinct, so helpful. It sort of seems like, yeah, obviously, but in reality, taking the time to implement all of this is what really makes the difference. And, the results that you shared truly prove that. So I think we've got some people in the chat saying, thank you. That was wonderful. Saw one person say, what a great speaker you are. So we're really happy that you were able to present this morning. So thank you so much. Please be in touch if any of you would like to learn more and to chat with Marcia one-on-one. We'll hang out for a few more minutes too.